Next, we have an interesting staff report. Most everyone in Oakwood knows that we have our own Oakwood Municipal Court, but did you know we also have an Oakwood Teen Court? Our law director, Rob Jacks, and also Sean Roberts is here to tell our community a little bit about what the Teen Court is and what they do. So welcome, Rob.
Like the Mayor introduced, I'd like to talk a little bit about our Teen Court program, which is something that those of us in the administration side of the city know very well. It's been around for a long time. A lot of people in the public probably are not. It's one of the best kept little secrets here in Oakwood. What is the Oakwood Teen Court? This is a pretrial diversion program that we offer for certain juvenile matters. And by diversion program, what I mean is that it diverts certain cases from the ordinary flow where they would be sent down to the juvenile court. They are sent instead to the Oakwood Teen Court. We have a panel that's put together, a peer panel, and that's staffed by students from Oakwood High School. But the judges for the Teen Court are Oakwood High School students, and they work under the supervision of a Teen Court advisor. That's Sean Roberts. This is a program that's been around for decades here in Oakwood. I don't know exactly how long it's been here. I can't find anything specifically documenting the age. I know that it was here when I was in high school, and I graduated in 1992. Our program here, though, went through some changes back in 2014, and that was for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it was the lack of documentation. When we tried to find out some of the history on the court, we couldn't find a whole lot about it and what there were no set policies or procedures. It was basically a program that existed for the benefit of Oakwood residents, I think, and we wanted to broaden that. There certainly could be some legal issues with having a program just for our own residents. I don't think people thought about that decades ago when they started something like this, but that was certainly one of the concerns. We also, something that's important when you're talking about records pertaining to juveniles is keeping them confidential. And we get public records requests here at the city for all kinds of records from time to time, and we wanted to ensure that those records pertaining to juveniles were not something that we would have to release if we were asked for it. And by bringing this under the umbrella, so to speak, of the Montgomery County Juvenile Court, we hoped to accomplish that. So I started the process of working with Judge Nick Kuntz, who is the administrative judge at Montgomery County Juvenile Court, and we worked out a set of written policies and procedures and went through the process of getting our teen court here in Oakwood officially recognized as an arm of the Montgomery County Juvenile Court. It's actually characterized as a satellite juvenile court program, and those were adopted back in May of last year. What we did when we had these policies and procedures approved, we wanted to, in essence, write up what we were already doing. We didn't want to make a lot of changes to the program because it had worked very well for a lot of years, but we did make certain enhancements to it. One of them was we spelled out what offenses were eligible for it. In the past, it was kind of one of these, well, if it's not really bad, we'll send it to teen court, and if it's really bad, we'll send it to juvenile court, and it was kind of a judgment call. We spelled out some very specific criteria for determining if offenses would go. The way it works now is any pedestrian or traffic matters can be referred to the teen court, with the exception of alcohol-related driving offenses like OVI or physical control while under the influence. Those are the only traffic ones that don't go. Accidents, cases that involve accidents with property damage greater than $1,000. If it's greater than $1,000, it'll go to juvenile court. Less than $1,000, it will stay here. On the criminal side of things, pretty much any misdemeanor crimes can go to teen court with the exception of offenses of violence. I think there's an exception for certain drug-related offenses. But most misdemeanor offenses will come here to teen court. Felonies will continue to go downtown, and then the exceptions that I mentioned there. We also made changes to who is eligible to attend. We broadened that, like I said, from just Oakwood residents to any juvenile who is stopped for a traffic offense in Oakwood or cited for a criminal offense here in Oakwood. We made an opt-in procedure on this, which is important because a lot of times we would refer cases to the teen court. The city no longer tracked that. The safety department didn't keep track of it. And we assumed that they were always handled in the way that they should have been, but there was no way for us to track what happened after that happened. So with this opt-in procedure, parents of juveniles who are arrested here in Oakwood will receive a notification that your child has been cited for a criminal offense or they've been cited for a traffic offense. If they want to attend our teen court, they are eligible, and you have to opt in, and they fill out that form and they send it back here. If we don't have that form within 10 days, it's automatically sent down to the Montgomery County Juvenile Court. So there's a procedure to keep things moving and track what happens to it. And then that leads me to the final enhancement, and that is documentation. We developed a number of particular forms. Those were all approved by the juvenile court. and those are now in use for how we operate the court. Benefits of the program are, first and foremost, that things are handled here locally. I personally subscribe to the belief that local government is always the most accountable. I've certainly heard you say that a lot, Mayor. I think the same is true for a local judicial resolution to certain kinds of cases, particularly when kids are involved. Cases are handled here without official court action. While it's an approved arm of the Montgomery County Juvenile Court, there is no official court record that is kept of these cases. So, when Junior gets a speeding ticket at age 16, he gets a bite at the apple here without having something follow him on his driving record for the rest of his life. A lot of times kids make mistakes when they're young, and this is a way of giving them some corrective action without necessarily creating a criminal record for those less serious offenses. Promptness is, of course, a benefit as opposed to waiting months, perhaps, for a case to get on the docket at Montgomery County Juvenile Court. They can have it heard here, and Sean will tell you a little bit about the schedule for the meetings that he oversees. Creative and innovative case disposition. The teen court is not constrained by the same rules that a court or a judge are constrained by in terms of sentencing. It's not just a matter of jail or fines. They have a lot of other things at their disposal that you'll hear about tonight. Parental involvement is also a benefit because you don't get to teen court without your parents knowing what you did, and we think that that's important. Certainly our experience with Oakwood residents has been that more often than not, parents want to be involved in this kind of process, and the teen court program offers them that opportunity. And finally, there's a positive experience both for the panel members, those who are hearing the cases, and also for the participants. We've divided the responsibilities for that teen court up into two spheres, if you will. The Public Safety Department handles a lot of the logistics of it, while Sean, as a teen court advisor, handles a lot of the boots on the ground kind of work. The initial charge comes from our Oakwood public safety officers, the same as any other juvenile charge would. It may be a traffic citation, it may be a criminal summons. The Safety Department handles eligibility screening, which means as they're reviewing daily work each day, our records custodian is going through, and anything that would be eligible for teen court referral is referred on to the teen court. They send those notifications to parents. The participant parent notification is handled by them. We've got multi-part carbon forms, to send out to them so that they can opt in and they can come participate in teen court here. The Safety Department handles all the scheduling and case tracking. One of the things that we do is that the teen court now meets on a regular schedule, and Doug Sanders, who's our records clerk, knows when the next one is going to be and when the cutoff is. So he lets them know in that first mailing, if you're going to opt in, here's when your hearing date is going to be. And then those are turned over to Sean, and he knows what cases they have lined up for that day. And then they also handle juvenile court referrals when necessary. These would be for either cases that are not eligible for teen court referral. Those are automatically kicked down to the juvenile court. Cases where someone does not opt in to the teen court process, those go down to Montgomery County Juvenile Court. And then rarely but occasionally you get somebody who falls off track in that process. They decide they don't want to come to teen court and they don't show up, or they perhaps do come, they're given a sanction of some sort, and they decide not to follow through on it. Those tickets are also referred on down to the Montgomery County Juvenile Court. And then finally, the maintenance of records, which we now do here in the Safety Department. These forms that have been developed are now being kept on file. But rest assured, they're not subject to public records requests because they're considered records of the juvenile court, even though we keep custody of them here. The teen court advisor runs the court proceedings. He's responsible for selecting the teen court panel, and he'll talk to you a little bit about that process and what he does there. And then he runs these bi-monthly meetings. They occur 5 times a year. They're bi-monthly with the exception of summers. And his role is to serve in an advisory capacity with the teen court panel. Now, Sean is a licensed attorney who has a mediation practice as well, so he has some experience and familiarity with the law and these types of alternative dispute resolution kinds of processes. But we've also got it written into our procedures that were approved by the juvenile court that at such time as Sean may step down, we would get someone else to step in. That person would either be a current or retired lawyer or judge, someone who's got that experience necessary to work with the panel and help them come out with fair results. Then the teen court advisor also assists in the documentation and record keeping because he's keeping track of what happens at those hearings. And then when that's done, he turns those in here to Doug Sanders, who's able to archive that and hang on to that. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sean. He's going to tell you a little more about the particulars. But that's what my role was in getting this approved and getting this off the ground and running.
Welcome, Sean.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks, Rob.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much. When I train or orient the new juniors and seniors every year, I usually tell them teen court is just about like life. It's about the little things. And it's kind of near and dear to me. I say, you're going to hear speeding offenses. You're going to have failure to yield on a left turn. You're going to have failure to have a seatbelt on. You're going to have people that reckless op. Maybe they're not quite in their lane. Maybe they drank a little bit. Individually, you're not going to get the guillotine for any of those things. But in May of 1998, my wife with my 7-year-old, 4-year-old, and 1-year-old was driving down Far Hills in the minivan, had her lights on, beautiful day, gorgeous, it was hot, coming to pick me up to go to a scout meeting, and somebody who drank a little bit after work, was speeding, was recklessly operating the vehicle and hit a couple cars on the way down, made a left-hand turn and failed to yield, hit the back corner of my minivan, moved my wife and kids up over to the next lane, up against the telephone pole, and the minivan rolled down Far Hills, ended up on its top, was flattened so badly that Channel 7 reported it as an SUV. They didn't even recognize it as a minivan. And my kids and wife were hung upside down. I call them the Bat Family. And it was a hit and run. Guy didn't bother to stop, but luckily he left his front license plate at the scene. And they didn't get him for the drunk driving part, but he served some time in jail. And so I tell him that none of these are a big deal, but these rules that you guys approved and changed the offenses and keep up to date, they kind of matter. And that kind of gets the judges' attentions every year. I've been doing this since the mid-1990s. Tom Talbot Jr. handed the reins over to me. It came with a stack of old paperwork, and I think this goes back at least to the 1960s.
Wow.
Which I never would have guessed. In my era, we've had 3 or 4 new chiefs of police in that time frame. And there hasn't been good record keeping because it's supposed to be kind of confidential. Rob's touched on the fact that the budget is zero. I don't get a staple, a penny, a piece of paper, or anything from the city of Oakwood to do this. And it runs real smoothly and it runs real well. We pick juniors and seniors from Oakwood High School. They fill out an application process. They've got like some referrals, a teacher. They've got phone numbers, parents' approval. They write a little bit of a reason why they might want to be here. We try to screen some of them if there's some issues with the Oakwood Police Department to see if there's any bad apples out there that want to get on. And we have our panel selected. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 12 or 15. In the old paperwork, it looks like they had groups of like 30, and they had like 10 would serve 1 week, and next month another 10 would serve, and it looked like it was a much more complex process. It's a lot of fun, and the kids get a lot out of it. It's like you can see them literally grow, the judges, as you're watching them. It's amazing the deliberation and the seriousness that these juniors and seniors put into it. We meet every other month, September through May. Cases vary. It depends on the seriousness of the offense. So there's not like we always have 25 cases a year. Sometimes there's fewer than 30. Sometimes there's more than 40. We meet right, and the judges sit right where you guys sit today. They come in one at a time, so we keep it confidential, and the other offenders and their parents are waiting out in the wings there. It's a very kind of down and dirty procedure. We have a process where the first thing they're done is sworn in. I'm going to tell the truth, whole truth. They've got an opportunity to recuse or excuse the judges that are on the panel. If they went to prom, with Ann, and Ann's the judge, it might not be, if Rob was in the car at the time, maybe not the best, offense to hear. That's rare, but sometimes we've had some recusals of judges. And we let the judges decide too, whether they want to step down for a particular offense. We keep the process confidential. The parent has to be there, and they get an opportunity to explain the events of what happened. I tell them that if you're speeding on the way to get your mom who's pregnant to the hospital, so it might be a little bit different than if you're coming from a party and you've been drinking or you had an issue and you're going 45 in a school zone, something like that. They basically kick them out in the hall, and we have what we call the precedent sheets, and this is where the confidential process, stays in place, but we basically have lists of offenses from previous years and the types of sanctions or penalties that those offenders have received. So they have a range. There's always a range. If we had an offense here tonight, Chris may be more strict than Steve, and Norb may be in between, and they reach a consensus on that. But they have a guideline. And I tell them, I said, just like at any court downtown, if you go before one judge, you might get a more stiff penalty. You go before another judge, you might be more lenient. I say, I'm not here to make the decision. The mayor may have picked something else. The chief of police may have picked something else. Rob may think it's not hard enough. Steve may think it's too strict. But I say, you guys are the teen court, and you guys get the opportunity to decide the offense, and so they take on that seriousness. Each of the offenses only takes about 10, 15 minutes max. They deliberate, they reach the conclusion, they bring it back in. They sign kind of a receipt, and that's what Rob touched on, that we let the parent keep a memorialization of the event, almost like a receipt, and I turn that over, another copy of that, to Doug Sanders so that the city knows what happened with that offense. All kinds of typical offenses like I described in my little family episode. It could be jaywalking, speeding, traffic accidents. We've had a lot of, throwing snowballs on Schroyer. We've had vandalism like spray painting cars or things that got out of hand when it should have been a TPing incident, something like that. Underage drinking, underage smoking if there's a certain age where you're supposed to smoke with a guardian or a parent present. Primarily they're speeding. Motor vehicle, stop signs, red lights, that type of thing. We ask the kids to keep it constructive. Rob mentioned that we have some flexibility. They don't have a stockade out front they put the kids in, but they're able to do things like say, we don't think this kid's going to learn if his mom writes a check and there's a fine and it's paid into the general fund at the city. So we're going to have this kid write a 10-page term paper on the dangers of smoking, for example, or underage smoking, if that's the offense that they were cited for, or the dangers of speeding, or the dangers or problems with underage drinking. Typically, it could be a fine. A lot of it's community service. Jay Weissencher was here earlier, and we pass on the community service sanctions to him, and he does a great job, and probably unheralded, to make sure that they do something here on the city property where they're cleaning, the fire department, they're cleaning up around here, they're putting in some time, and so there's a lot of community service options that come into play. Also, they'll get things like suspended license. They can get anything from a complete suspension where we actually take their driver's license for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. We turn it over to dispatch. The police holds on to it, and they no longer have their driver's license for that period. Sometimes we'll give them a break, and they have that suspended license almost like an honor system, where they keep their license, but they're allowed only to use their vehicle for work or school privileges. We talked about some of the particulars about there's no official record, it's confidential, no attorneys needed. If you want an attorney, you go to juvenile court. It's unbelievable how, like I said, the kids just grow with it. They volunteer for this, and I don't get paid for this. The kids don't get paid for this, and inevitably they get done with their first session of the year, and they're like, I love this. And you can see them get turned on to the law. They start thinking about what you guys do. They wonder about what the police do. They look at it from a different perspective because they're making a decision, and it ends up being this like introduction to the civic life, which is what you guys are all about. So that's my presentation for this evening. If you guys have any questions, I'm sure Rob and I'd be happy to.
Thank you very much, Sean. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I do. When you said no repeat offenders, would that be at all, or let's say the first time was speeding and then the second time was stop sign? Is it no repeat for the person or for the actual offense?
Technically, they could get a second time around a teen court if it was a completely unrelated different offense.
Right.
The way it's worded in the procedures is that they can't come twice for a like and similar offense.
Right. So they're not coming twice for speeding.
Right.
Right. Okay. Very good.
But we've had situations where you've got a speeder and then they're caught jaywalking coming back from lunch, and that's the type of thing. That's like give them a shot.
Other questions?
Do you have a chief justice then who runs each particular?
We do. As part of the process, we actually have someone that serves as the transcriber or court reporter, so they're filling out the paperwork, receipt. We have a head judge, and the procedures all laid out. I actually have in bold what they read and non-bold the process, so it
It's
goes.
good it wasn't there in '87 when I served as chief judge.
There you go.
I still talk to my friend who ran the stop sign over at 4 in Far Hills. We gave him 5 hours of community service. He had to work at the Oakwood Historical Society.
There you go, yeah. We've tried to give them a little bit more of a, framework.
That's great.
So,
Yeah, and we have somebody that serves as a bailiff, and they kind of go in the hallway and retrieve. So we have a head judge, a bailiff, and a court reporter, so to speak.
is it 18 and under or 17 and under to be eligible for this?
Under 18,
Under 18.
the 17 and under.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, minor.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so you said there's no fees, but it seems you mentioned there's new documentation. There's a little
We
bit.
had some forms printed up.
Forms, but it's minor.
Cost.
It's not excessive by any means, especially it's only, 5 times a year?
Right.
So it's still not adding up to anything. It's paper. That's about it.
No, there's not a lot of cost associated with the
Right.
teen court. I don't know that we separately track that, but it's just become part of the daily operation of the safety department as far as the printing of forms and that sort of thing.
You don't even have to report anything to the county then, do you?
One of the forms that we developed is we call it a contact sheet, which basically notifies the juvenile court that we've had contact with this particular juvenile, and there's, some demographic information that's provided to them. That's just a way for them to log that name in their system, so that if that person ends up down there in juvenile court for a subsequent matter, the juvenile court is aware that this isn't their first rodeo
Yeah, okay.
when they get down there.
But that's scanned probably.
Yeah,
We're still
it's-
not, it's not a lot. Yeah,
No,
okay.
no.
Good.
Since we started keeping these statistics in 2014 and opening it up to a wider variety of people, I mean, we're now not just Oakwood citizens, but everyone, it's roughly about 50-50 between those who are Oakwood residents and those who are not, who are committing teen court eligible offenses.
All right. Well, Sean, thank you very much for your service on behalf of
Yes,
Oakwood.
thanks, Sean.
And Rob, congratulations for you making this program what it is. We appreciate it.